The cameras are rolling, the red lights on. Let's lift the velvet curtain on a palace drama most people never see. Picture the state apartments at dawn, hush-quiet corridors, chandeliers still dark, couriers padding across parquet floors with envelopes stamped urgent, eyes only. Something electric hangs in the air, and it isn't just anticipation for trooping the color. Word is spreading that two of the crown's most formidable women have drawn an invisible battle line, one defending centuries of rigid duty, the other crowned by controversy yet closer to the king's ear than anyone alive. If that sounds like a plot ripped from prestige television, stay with me, because the next few minutes may have you questioning everything you thought you knew about royal unity. First, let's set the stage. This weekend King Charles rides down the Mall for his official birthday celebration, that annual spectacle of scarlet uniforms and sky-blue flypasts known as trooping the color. Crowds will cheer, soldiers will salute, and for a fleeting moment Britain will look united behind its sovereign. But what the cameras won't show is what palace aides are quietly calling the ripple. Because that same morning, Princess and fresh out of concussion recovery after being knocked off her feet at Gatcombe, will swing herself into the saddle and lead the household cavalry. Royal watchers see a triumphant comeback, insiders see a coded statement: the Princess Royal is still the monarchy's iron spine. Yet Anne's return arrives just as another royal power ascends, Camilla, Queen Consort, once the nation's most divisive figure, now sitting where Diana's star once blazed. 4 decades and has carried the torch of unflinching duty, clocking more engagements than anyone in the family. She respects hierarchy, but only if it serves the crown's stability. And according to palace whispers, she's convinced Camilla's growing influence over the king is a wild card the monarchy can't afford. But what came next surprised everyone tuned to royal body language. At Charles's coronation, the world expected Katherine, Princess of Wales, the very image of future Queen Serenity, to offer Camilla the full, sweeping curtsy reserved for a crowned consort. Instead Katherine dipped her head, a polite nod, nothing more. Cameras slid past the micro-moment in real time. Protocol experts did a double take. Was it a harmless update to an outdated gesture or a silent vote against Camilla's elevation? Katherine never explained, and the palace never clarified. Around Buckingham, that tiny nod detonated like a suppressed secret. Here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Anne, famously blunt, has never hidden her skepticism of anything that threatens what she calls the proper way of doing things. The Princess Royal once quipped, "I don't do celebrity," a veiled jab at anyone chasing headlines rather than hard graft. Behind oak doors she's rumored to have warned Charles years ago, Camilla's charm must not outshine the institution. Now, with Charles enthroned and Camilla seated beside him at every state dinner, sources say Anne has tightened her circle, doubling down on engagements and insisting junior staff keep the Queen Consort's office in the loop but not in command. Translation: the Princess Royal will serve, but she will not yield her compass to someone she still views through the lens of Diana's faded silhouette. And that's when things started to change in the daily rhythm of palace life. Schedules once decided by the Lord Chamberlain now pass through 2 competing gatekeepers, Anne's private secretary and Camilla's. Charity chiefs whisper that invitations arrive stamped provisional until the women's teams agree who headlines. It isn't open warfare, no slammed doors, no raised voices, but aides joke you can feel the tug by watching the flower arrangements. If lilies dominate a reception, and had the lead, if tulips appear, Camilla's office secured the slot. Meanwhile Katherine, the monarchy's modern talisman, keeps her counsel. Friends say she's laser-focused on balancing chemo monitoring, mothering 3 heirs, and designing a mental health initiative that will bypass newspapers entirely and drop straight onto children's phones. Yet those same friends admit she and Anne share a private line, bonding over a love of horses and a conviction that royal duty must never slide into royal performance art. When Katherine nodded instead of curtsying, some read it as a respectful modern tweak. Others saw Anne's fingerprint all over it, a measured signal that Camilla may wear a crown, but acceptance inside the firm is earned, not inherited by marriage. But here's the kicker: Charles himself may be too occupied with his health battle to referee. The king splits his calendar between chemotherapy cycles and climate diplomacy, relying heavily on Camilla for domestic hosting. Every time he asks her to greet a visiting president, her court standing ticks up another notch. For Anne, That's precisely the worry, too much invisible power accumulating in soft laughter and late-night briefings. For Katherine, it's potential turbulence waiting to spill onto her children's future reign. At the center of that turbulence sits a ghost that never quite leaves these halls, Diana. Ask any veteran footman and he'll tell you her name is rarely spoken, yet her portrait seems to watch every grand staircase. To those who adored her, Camilla's crown still feels like a plot twist written in the wrong genre. And was Diana's confidant in ways few understood. Katherine married into William's heartbreak and vowed never to repeat the triangle narrative. When Camilla rides in the state carriage wearing that diamond diadem, you can practically hear unspoken memories scraping against gilded doors. So, where does this simmering tension lead? Some insiders predict a quiet detente. Camilla continues soft power hosting and keeps the ceremonial reins. Katherine surfaces online with child-focused projects that modernize the monarchy without throwing protocol to the wolves. Others sense a collision course. If Camilla pushes to centralize her influence, say, by requesting greater control over Commonwealth tours, and could respond by rallying senior cousins behind the traditional hierarchy. Katherine, meanwhile, may have to pick a side when her eldest children step into full public roles. The nod that shook the coronation might be just the first domino. And yet, there's always the possibility that the monarchy evolves through friction. Charles may see Camilla's social warmth and Anne's unbreakable duty as complementary gears in the Windsor engine. Katherine might translate that synergy onto TikTok feeds, making curtsies irrelevant to a generation more interested in mental health toolkits than in who kneels to whom. The question is whether the palace can choreograph that evolution before tabloids brand every sideways glance a declaration of war. So what happens next? Watch Trooping the Colour with binocular precision. How close does Anne ride to the sovereign's carriage? Does Camilla lean forward during the salute or keep a respectful distance? And when Katherine appears on the balcony, do her eyes flicker toward the queen consort with warmth or something more guarded? These are microsignals, yes, but in royal analysis, microsignals morph into macro headlines. Now over to you. Do you view Camilla as a modern stabilizer who helped Charles heal, or as the wild card and fears? Was Katherine's coronation not a progressive gesture or a quiet act of allegiance to the Princess Royal? Drop your theories below. Every nuance counts in a family where silence often roars louder than speeches. And if this backstage glimpse kept you leaning closer, hit that like button. Your click powers the algorithm that pushes royal truth-seeking to more curious minds. Subscribe and ring the bell because the next body language flash, maybe at this weekend's parade, could redraw the Windsor family tree once again, and we'll decode it frame by frame so you never miss a beat. Stay sharp, stay skeptical, and remember, in the corridors of power, the deepest tremors rarely crack the marble. They whisper through curtsies, nods, and who dares ride closest to the king's side. The royal storm hasn't broken yet, but the sky over Buckingham is darkening, and the first thunderclap might be just one balcony wave away.